Do you overthink sometimes? I think everybody kind of goes through that every once in a while, but there are some of us that overthinking is actually kind of a fact of life. I mean, there's nothing we can do about it. It's debilitating. It paralyzes us. It puts us into a really negative mind space. And it's really, really hard to get out of if you don't have the right tools to figure that out. And so I have a few tips that I can share to add to your toolbox. I have only 5 to share today because I'm trying to consolidate. And again, I'm trying to find ones that are as easy as humanly possible to do so that you could practice each of them. Some of them are better when you're awake. Some of them are better when you're, when you're maybe laying in bed and overthinking just before bed. So that you can pick and choose which ones you can do at each times. But at the end of the day, what you really want to do is to kind of put your mind back at ease. And if it's going to be going at a mile a minute, it should be going at a mile a minute about happy stuff. So let's get started on each of the tips. Tip number one, don't think of what can go wrong. Think of what can go right. And I know that that's a little hard to do. When you're flipping something on its head like that, it doesn't always come easy when your brain always tries to form the negative thing and you can't seem to forget about it. But I think it's equally as important to try to train your brain that when it goes to this bad place and it forms an ending that is negative, tell it no, cancel. I learned that recently. Cancel, or tell it stop. It could also end this way. So as likely as it is for things to end this negative way, it is just as likely that it can end on the good side. Especially if your thoughts lead to negative actions that can actually give you the outcome that you were expecting. So, and I'll get more into that later, but try to think of it as, okay, I already know that my mind is going to build a story, and it tends to build a story with a negative ending. So when it starts to do that, tell it stop. If you have to say it out loud, just go stop. I cannot begin to be a psychic and know that it's going to end badly. Tell yourself, what if it ends well? What if the best case scenario actually happens instead of the worst case scenario? And go there. So, quick funny story. I had a friend that he got to a point at work that he thought that he was going to lose his job. He's just like, I just know it. I'm going to end up fired. I'm terrified that I'm going to get fired. I just think that it's going to end this way because there doesn't seem to be another option. And so instead of me telling him, don't think that way, and instead of doing that, I was just like, okay, maybe you'll get fired. Okay, maybe you will lose your job. What is the worst case scenario? And I know that playing this game of worst case scenario can be a little dangerous depending on how crazy you think, but it worked in this case. And he came back to me and said, well, if I lose my job, I guess I'll be spending a lot of time on my boat going fishing. And I'm like, yeah. So is that so bad? You'll have a little time for yourself instead of working, ungodly hours. Was it so bad? And so it's funny because it became a joke, forever, that what is the worst that can happen? So now he played the game, other coworkers started playing the game, and before I knew it, the little game that I played on the, worst case scenario when people were starting to freak out about stuff, turned out that there's always a silver lining. There's always something positive that can come out of a negative situation. And so we chose to focus on those things, and it worked. So don't think of what can go wrong. Think about how well it can go. Okay, change the ending to a happy ending. Even if it goes negative, there's always something positive. That some door closed, another one opened. So don't harp on the fact that it's just going to lead to death and destruction, because it's not usually the case. So the second tip is distract yourself into happiness. This one is the funnest of all of them, of course, because what I'm really suggesting you do is, rather than drowning in the negative thoughts, hit that cancel, stop, tell it to stop, and put on the best dance song that you can think of. Turn up the volume and dance like no one's watching. Just take an action that is positive, something that brings you joy, and just do it. If instruments are your thing, play an instrument. If writing poetry is your thing, write poetry. Draw something. Paint. Knit. Whatever strikes your fancy. What brings you joy, and whatever that is, distract yourself with something positive. I'm not saying distract yourself with anything, because there are negative things to distract yourself with. I'm saying think of something positive, something that brings you joy, okay, that is healthy, and do that. It's not going to cure the overthinking, but what it does do is it trains your brain that it doesn't control you. You control you. And so little by little you can do that. When you come out of that positive mind space, after you've finished the painting, after you've after you've danced till your little heart's content, your brain is going to be in a different place. It won't easily flip back into the negative. So try to do something that brings you joy, and you'll find it a lot easier to start thinking and controlling the rest of it. Maybe that can be your first step. Okay, the next one is visualizing that your worries are in a bubble. Now, this one is a really cool one that I heard of from a friend, one of that suffers from a lot of overthinking, and her therapist actually suggested this for her. And so I started to implement it too, and it works pretty well. Especially if you're really good at visualizing things. Overthinkers tend to be really good and imaginative. So if you can have that brain set where you can imagine things in your head, imagine that your trouble, that your problem is in a little bubble. Put it in a little bubble, give it a name, and visualize that you're looking at it in that bubble, and then take your finger and pop it. Pop the bubble. It's symbolic of letting those thoughts know that they're not welcome right now. Not right now. It is a gentle reminder that your brain does not need to go there. You are not at its mercy. So pop the thought. There are various other visualization skills that are similar to that one, and putting it in a bubble and popping it. But I really enjoy the bubble one. It's kind of cute, and it's very effective because it's just the easiest thing in the world to think about. You kind of kill those negative thoughts in your head, literally. The next one is, the next tip, this is already number 4, is setting a time limit for your decisions. So if there's something that's really bothering you and you're thinking about a problem, literally set a timer. Put it on your phone, tell Alexa to do it for you. Set a timer for 30 minutes, an hour, depending on the size of the problem or problems. You may need a little bit more time. But give yourself permission to think about the things that worry you. Okay? Write down what they are. Take a piece of paper and a pencil and just write down what your worries are. And then once you have your worries down on paper, you can start solutioning each of them one by one. Now, I'm not suggesting that every single problem is going to have an immediate answer. But what I am saying is that every single problem that you have that's going on in your head does have something that you can action. Whether that's having a conversation, whether that's picking up a phone call and calling a friend to make to give yourself a little bit of peace of mind. Just think of something that you can do that can action these worries. And it could very well be having a conversation with the person that's bothering you, or if it's a huge problem, right? Like maybe you're thinking, one of the things that are keeping you up at night is world hunger. I don't know. Way big problem, right? World hunger is a huge problem, and it's something that's keeping you up at night. Rather than finding a solution to world hunger, take a baby step toward it. You're coming up with a solution that you can action, right? Donating to your local food bank, or volunteering time to feed the hungry. donating money to a good cause. So you could action it in a small way to give yourself a little bit of peace of mind that you are making an impact and that you are resolving the issue that is keeping you up. Okay? And the last one. The last one is accepting that you can't control everything. And this is a big one because I think that people that are notoriously overthinkers, this is one of the reasons why we overthink. We want everything to end the way we want them to end, period. And when situations come up where we don't have complete control, like for example, if it's in someone else's hands, your brain tends to go to a bad place. You can't control every outcome. There are some things that if you made that list and you solution things one by one, and you can sort of tackle each of the problems, even if it's just to put your mind at ease by having a conversation with somebody or whatever that is, accept the fact that you aren't always going to be able to solve everything, and that is okay. Everyone falls on their face every once in a while. Everyone fails at something that they try. It's the only way for us. It's a part of life. It's the only way that we're going to grow wiser and stronger. We have to face the troubles in order to be able to know how to deal with things like that in the future. Don't be afraid of that. It's paralyzing to think that you have to control everything, and anything that you can't control, you overthink. So try to think of things in a matter of accepting the fact that if it doesn't turn out the way that you would like it to, the way that you planned for it to end, it'll be okay. You're going to be okay. You are going to be okay. If it doesn't work out, you'll be fine. This too shall pass. You will find ways to move past it. You will learn to look out for situations like this in the future in a healthy way. You can handle it. Don't let it impact your health. Don't let it impact your sleep. Don't let it impact your other relationships because your brain can't shut off. Find ways to quiet it. And that can include meditation. That could include dancing. That could include learning a new skill. Find positive outlets that you can do on your own. That's key. You don't need other people to feel better. You've got to find ways to self-soothe. Overthinkers, above all other people, need to learn that. So, I just want to end it on one more thought. And this is something that I firmly believe to be true. And if you've seen any of my previous videos, you know that I'm a believer in the law of attraction. Letting your brain go to these negative places and forming an ending that has a negative outcome on a regular basis will absolutely make, it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It starts to make those negative things happen. Constantly worrying about not having enough hours in the day at work to be able to get things accomplished will guarantee that you won't get a lot accomplished at the end of the day. You'll always feel unfulfilled. But if you celebrate the small wins, when you go into work every day and say, okay, I had a long list of things to do. I knocked 2 down, really good ones. Tomorrow I'll knock more out. You will realize that those positive reinforcements, the giving yourself the celebration in your own mind and on your own, will actually breed better habits in the future too. That's using positive reinforcement. That's celebrating the small wins and knowing that you're not actually a failure. No one can do everything all at once. And if you're going at your own pace and you're doing your best, then you're doing everything right. So try to remember, if you stay in that negative mind space, people will pick up on it and situations will actually go in the direction that you focus. But if you focus on all the positive things and learn to trust in yourself, that it'll be okay no matter what, you kind of become untouchable. So I wish you the best of luck. I know overthinking is really, really hard. And I hope that these tools can be useful for you in the event that this does keep you up at night or make you, kind of lead you into negative spaces. Try. Don't give up. Your brain just needs to be taught it wants to go somewhere. It's trying to point out the problem. The best thing that you can do is action those. Action them by distraction, action them by finding solutions, action them by refocusing and reforming the story. Rewrite that story in your head. You can do it. All right, guys. Have a good one, and we'll talk again soon.